to the Cascade Pacific Council's Friends of Scouting Leadership Breakfast. My name is Olivia Scrode, and I'm a Scout in Crew 108 and the Girls Troop 108 in Salem. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this morning's program to celebrate Scouting, and I'm honored to serve as your Masters of Ceremonies. In 1909, an American newspaperman and entrepreneur, William D. Boyce, became lost in London and was rescued by a scout. The scout declined a tip, saying he was doing a good turn as a scout. Intrigued, Boyce visited scouting headquarters and learned more about the program. Then, on February 8, 1910, Boyce filed incorporation papers in Washington, D.C., and the Boy Scouts of America was born. And the rest, as they say, is history. However, the story does not end there. For over 100 years, Scouting has been changing the lives of youth and adults throughout our country by instilling in them the values of the Scout Oath and Law. Finally, I would like our color guard from Troop 150 of West Salem to lead our flag ceremonies. Please rise as we honor our nation's flag. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. As a Scout is reverent, please bow your heads and join me in giving thanks. Dear God, thank you for the many blessings you have given us, especially the thousands of men and women who volunteer their time to make Scouting possible. Thank you for the community leaders, parents, and volunteers who support Scouting and are here today to help us celebrate. We are grateful for the support this community provides to Scouting as it develops the next generations of leaders. We ask for your continued blessings on our community of leaders, neighbors, parents, and children whose lives intertwine and support each other. We are thankful for this meal, this day, and for the Scouting program. May we be found following the spirit of Scouting and find ways to serve our community and those around us. Amen. Thank you to Troop 150 Color Guard. The Cascade Pacific Council is privileged to have nearly 10,000 amazing volunteers who serve and support the more than 20,000 youth we serve annually. Our breakfast this morning is provided by the generous support of our sponsors. We would like to thank Mountain West Investment Corporation and Taco Bell as our presenting sponsors and our table sponsors, Withnell Motor Company, the Grand Hotel in Salem, Roth's IGA, Veneta Public Relations, Pacific Office Automation, Pioneer Trust Foundation, and the Salem Conference Center. Because of the generous support of these sponsors, every dollar raised this morning will directly benefit Scouts in our area. Today, we are fortunate enough to have a dedicated leader, Matt Devore, who serves as the Cascade Pacific Council Scout Executive and CEO. Please welcome Matt Devore.
Thank you, Olivia, and thank you all for being here this morning. It's my honor to speak with you for just a few minutes. Sure do appreciate you taking time to join us. Before I get into some comments, I need to share an admonition that while I love Scouting, I'm also a member of Beaver Nation with 2 of my 3 kids being there, so I have to shout out to Coach Casey for taking time to join us this morning. Please join me in thanking him. I'd like to take just a few minutes to share a bit of vision. The screen has been showing some of the visuals and some of the things I'd like to really briefly cover. First of all, we've established a vision for the next 5 years to lead us into 2023 stronger and better than ever. Olivia is a good example of the direction we're headed. We're now serving full families. This Friday, February 1st, will be the launch as we welcome girls into our older youth program, which will be called Scouts BSA. The umbrella organization will continue to be called Boy Scouts of America, and we'll have Cub Scouts for younger boys and girls. We'll have Scouts BSA for older boys and girls. I imagine Olivia and hundreds of other girls will become Eagle Scouts as early as the end of 2020, which is pretty amazing to me. So when I see a young woman like Olivia speak, it makes my heart swell with joy, and I'm really delighted that Olivia was here to start our program this morning. So a little bit our vision. We have a vision to serve all families, regardless of their background and family or socioeconomic circumstances. Further, we plan to utilize nature and our great programs to develop young men and women of character, confidence, and the sense of community service. And by 2023, there's an incredible goal statement. I won't read it word for word, as you can see on the screen, but we hope to be, and it's an aspirational statement, the irrefutable leading youth and family program in the Pacific Northwest, known for our outdoor education programs, with outcomes once again focused on what scouting's been known for more than 100 years, character building, career readiness, leadership, and service. In 2018, we had a really exceptional year. We served nearly 20,000 boys and girls across 18 counties of Northwest Washington and Northwest Oregon and Southwest Washington, including this great area around Salem. We had roughly 15,000 young people participate in our outdoor education programs at camp. That will continue to be a strength, and once again, we use our blessings from on high and our outdoor resources to help young people experience these life lessons that will lead them through the rest of their lives. And as Olivia said, we have roughly 9 to 10,000 caring adult role models that serve as volunteers. They are clearly the heart and soul of everything we do. Roughly 17,000 young people participated in STEM and skill building activities such as our merit badge and career readiness programs. Notably, and we often take this for granted, on an average year we have between 150 and 160,000 hours of community service. That one we don't talk about often enough, but virtually everybody involved in scouting, from the day they join as a 7-year-old possibly, they start to understand the importance of giving back to the broader community. And I already talked briefly in my opening comments about scouting welcoming full families. I'd like to share a little story about this family. Probably one of the most inspirational meetings I've ever had in my 32-year career across the country occurred at the Rose Festival Parade this summer. This is Jose Gomez, Jose's wife and 2 daughters. They moved to America from Mexico just several years ago. Jose had his own company. He owned and operated. He was CEO, and he left Mexico due to threats of violence against him personally on multiple occasions. Once they heard that girls could join Cub Scouts in January of 2018, they joined immediately, and they led our parade. We were the 3rd in the lineup at the Rose Festival. It was about 4.5-hour walk, sometimes with the rain going sideways. And I've got to tell you, their youngest daughter stole my heart and soul. I walked behind this family, and I'd never met them, but scouting, serving full families is where we need to be. 87% of parents across the country said they wanted scouting to begin allowing full families, including girls, to join. And I like to say it's not about girls, it's not about boys, it's literally about full families having the opportunity to participate in a character education program together. But in any event, back to this wonderful family. So the young girl who hadn't been in America very long was waving that little flag, American flag, with pride for 4.5 hours, and then waving her left hand to the crowd for 4.5 hours. And I don't think I've ever been more proud to be a part of this country. And I'd love to see more of that in this world we live in today. But it's a wonderful, wonderful part of my career is really meeting people from all walks of life like the Gomez family. So in closing, I'd like to thank our honorees. I'd like to thank Dick Withnell and others that were part of putting the event together, and our team, including Scott Mischke, Steve Utter, and many others that helped put this breakfast together, and for you for being here. And I'll share a little bit of additional good news, and then we can carry on with the program. So for the last couple of years, we've dreamed of developing cabins at our coastal camp called Camp Meriwether, which is just south of Tillamook. Beautiful property. It's been a scout camp since the mid-1920s, but scouts don't mind sleeping outdoors. Outdoor school students, parents, and teachers, although they would prefer reasonably nice cabins, and I'm happy to share that our effort to raise about $6 million to build cabins and a nature ecology lodge to be able to really properly host outdoor school is now well underway. Early last fall, the Epping Foundation, and Gary's with us today, thankfully. They've supported scouting and many other causes, as all of you know, in the broader community, but they committed to a $1.5 million gift early in the fall, and we were able to, at year end, match that from another donor. So now we have two gifts of $1.5 million each. So now we have $3 million to the $6 million, and so we're starting to talk a little bit about it publicly. So we're off to a really good start with just two gifts, but please join me in recognizing the wonderful support of Epping Foundation for many, many great causes. And with that, last thing I'll say is that we typically have about 500 young men achieve the Eagle Award. Our volunteers have set a goal by 2023 that will have 1,000 Eagle Scouts from the 18-county area every year, with 500 being young men and 500 being young women. And I hope you'll continue to help us get there for the benefit of these young people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Devore, for those comments. At this time, please welcome David Withnell.
Morning, everybody. Just a quick show of hands. Has anybody been to Omaha to see the College World Series? Anybody? Coach, I know you're there. So before I introduce Coach Pat Casey, I wanted to give you a little bit of a rundown on how not to go to Omaha. And so this is circa 2006. So my son Jake, who's sitting at the table, and my older son Dan and I missed the opportunity to go in 2005. Coach Casey still holds that against me, and I was coaching at the time, so I had a legitimate excuse. But in 2006, I told my wife and I told my boys that we're going if the Beavers make it to back to Omaha in 06. And so this is how you don't do it. You don't set your return flight 4 days after you get there. Because first of all, to fly to Omaha right now costs about $200 round trip. But in the month of June, it's about $1,500. I mean, it's insane. They understand the market. And so we got 3 tickets. The first game was going to be the series opened on Friday. Happened to be Jake's 16th, or I think it was it was on the 16th. So it was his birthday, I remember. And we get to get the return flight on Tuesday because I figured, they went 0-2 in 05. So I figured they'd win a game, and I have my flights back, and I need to go back to work. And so we lose the first game to Miami, and ironically, we were staying at the hotel where Miami was hosted, and so I had to live with that whole thing that first night, which was not fun. It wasn't a very pretty game, if I recall, 11-1, I think was the final, and it was rain out, delay, and So that's okay. We'll play the next day. We'll probably win in that losers bracket, and hope we come back on Tuesday. Well, we kept winning. The Beavers kept winning. I assume a part of it because I'm there. So when I say we, that's loosely attached to the team. And so not only do I not have I got to change the flights, I got to call my wife and tell her, hey, I can't, I'm not making it back, and the boys, you know, we're still going to be here. And so we changed the flight to the following Friday because I was looking down the line and we'd have to beat Rice twice, and they were really good, and that's not going to happen. And so I had to get another hotel. Fortunately, I ran into Coach, and Coach was able to get us into the hotel where the Beavers were staying, and which was super fun because a couple of the kids played on my American Legion team, the Withnell Dodgers. So I had a little bit of an in, and we felt like we were part of the team, and had breakfast with them and went to the zoo and some other things. And so then we fast forward, we beat Rice in the first game, and so we can't obviously going to beat them in the second game to get in the championship series. We do. So I had to change my flights again. So I figured this time I'm going to change it to the following Tuesday because the championship series goes over that final weekend. And so I called my dad and I said, hey, Dad, why don't you come down? I mean, this is big time. I mean, you don't know when this is going to happen again. And he goes, yeah, okay, I'll come down to game 1 of the championship series against North Carolina. And he comes, and it's a great game. And, you know, we get a little bit of a rain delay. And he leaves to go get a couple hot dogs because that's what my dad does. And we score a bunch of runs, and he comes back and he goes, what happened? And I said, you know, and everybody around us is going, well, you need to go back and get some more hot dogs. And he doesn't. This is the crazy part. He doesn't understand baseball. He doesn't understand this. And you baseball people know what I'm talking about. And so he doesn't, and we lose the game. And so he has to go back, and so he flies back the next day. And as I come back for the second game, people around me go, where's your dad? I said, I sent him home. Thank you. I mean, it was genuine. We're all crazy. And of course, we ended up winning that game, won that game in an incredible fashion, and then came back and won the whole World Series. So the cost of this is the lesson. So you don't, if the Beavers are in the World Series and you want to go to Omaha, and I recommend you do. It is the bucket list of all bucket lists to go see the College World Series. It just is. I've been to Super Bowls, I've been to Final Fours, I've been to a NASCAR race. Nothing compares to Omaha in June. Nothing. It's the most amazing experience, particularly if you're a baseball fan. But don't set your flights early if the Beavers are in. Just plan on being there 10 days. Okay, that's the first thing. Second thing is get one hotel, because every time you switch, you got to repack, and it's a pain in the butt. And then also too, I think about this. If you think about that game in 06, it was the biggest epic comeback ever. You know, to play in 6 elimination games. It's unheard of. It never happened before to play in 6 elimination games. And then fast forward to 2018, and they did it again. And I can't believe, I didn't go this last time. I sat and watched it on television, but to watch them come back this year was amazing. It was just an incredible experience, I think, for Beaver Nation for sure, but for baseball fans alike. So let me introduce this coach of ours. In 1990, he ended his playing career and he became the coach at George Fox. And in 95, then was named the head coach at Oregon State. And where through 2018, he compiled a record of 900 and 458 and 6 ties, which is amazing. 06 won the World Series and with 6 elimination games, as I said. Came back and won it in 07, went back to that series as well, and that one was crazy because I think we were the last team picked into the tournament, and then rolled through Omaha just at a blistering pace. And I had made the flights correctly that time, just FYI. And 2010, Coach Casey was named Baseball America's Coach of the Decade from 2000 to 2009. And then recently, on 2018 in September, he announced his retirement, and he's still trying to figure out what that means. So let's bring up Coach Casey.
Most of that stuff he said is true. The one thing, I get all this recognition, and I'm not even the best coach at my table. The great Ad Rutschman here. And I grew up, that's true, I grew up a Linfield fan. My dad went to McMinnville High School and played for Ted Wilson in high school basketball, and so just great admiration for Ad, but he is the second most favorite guy in the Russian family for me right now, because his grandson, Adley's really something, as y'all know. I'm really not prepared to speak to you this morning because Dave shot me a call. First of all, Dave and Dick have been unbelievable to me, Oregon State, and our baseball program for my entire time here. And I also know that Dick was good to Ed Stevens, and Ed Stevens was the president of George Fox, and that's how I got into coaching. I got released in the middle of summer of '87, and I got a call that asked if I had any interest in coaching, and I said absolutely not. And I talked to the AD, and I didn't. I had no interest in that whatsoever. I actually came down here on 12th Street and went to real estate school for a week, and I was behind. I can't remember the guy's, Norm Webb, I think was his name. And I went to school there, but they were like 3/4 of the way through school, so I had to take these tests. And I'd been playing minor league baseball for 8 years. I wasn't in the library very often. And I was in a few establishments, but they weren't the library. So anyway, I got my real estate license, and I was going to be a real estate guy, but Ed talked me into taking the job for 1 year. And 31 years later, here I am standing in front of you guys that have no idea what to say. You know, you think about the things that Dave talked about, and really, you know, coaching is teaching. You know, I just can't tell you how it changed my life and what it did for me. And, you know, I think of what are they, the 12 points for the law of the Boy Scouts. If we just followed those, we'd all be pretty good. I show up today and I hear the Pledge of Allegiance. I see the United States flag. I see people that honor what this is all about. It's pretty good. But my job as a coach, I thought, was to be competitive and win baseball games. And really, what I discovered during that whole crazy process was I got all these young men that I'm responsible for, and you know, they have to live their life beyond baseball. Most of those guys never play in the big leagues, never make any money playing baseball. So somehow I fell upon this this job of taking care of young men, and that was something that was unbelievable to me. It was an honor for me to be able to do that, and I can tell you that we talk about kids changing and this, that, and the other. I don't think kids have changed at all. I think the environment they're coming from has changed. But I'm telling you that young man, it's not the environment, it's his attitude towards those things in the environment that determine whether we're going to be victorious or defeated. And I learned that was the way to coach. Coaching baseball for me is easy, and I think it is for most people. How you throw, how you catch, how you run, those things are not difficult. What's difficult is to get a person to do it at a level they don't think they can do it. And for most people that think that what we've done is amazing, if your attitude is the way our guy's attitude is, it isn't amazing at all. It's what we do. And it's not easy to win games, but it's a lot easier when you have people, especially these young men that I get to coach, that believe in what we do. And I think that is what I try to get them to understand, that if they take that into life, what they can do to help others. The number one thing that I can tell you is that we have to develop leaders. My job there, and the number one job, is to develop leaders. And leaders are people that do things and take people places that nobody else would go by themselves. Leaders are, we have to empower them. We have to create a desire to be a leader. And I think we're missing that. I think our country's starving for true leaders. And the reason there's not very many leaders is because we're afraid to say what we really feel, because we feel like that's going to offend somebody, or that's not going to be something that we're supposed to say. So I'm trying to get bold young men to do things that are right and be courageous and embolden them to do things that we believe in and our core beliefs and our values, because I think that our culture, our belief system drives behavior. You know, behavior drives habits, and habits become character, and character becomes destiny. And I think we all know that. And we always talk about how short life is, even though days are long. That's true. And so what we try to do is get these guys to understand what they can do in that short period of time and how effective they can be. And once they discover that it's a lot easier to do that when you have more guys on your team that believe in what you're doing. So our culture there is a belief system. It is an absolute belief system in one another, in what we do, how we do it, when we do it, And we always talk about compared to what? We talk about things that are difficult. And we always decide, we're going to decide how difficult that really is. We look at our, the one thing I like about the cell phone is it can tell me what the temperature is in Anchorage, Alaska. So when we're practicing outside and it's 48 degrees, we pull that out and say, well, it's 3 in Anchorage, pretty good in Corvallis, right? You know? So we changed the mindset. We changed the mindset of what they believe in, what they do, and how they do it. Humility. People that are humble and people that want to serve become the best leaders of all. That's the amazing thing about that trail. If you're willing to serve, if you're willing to be humble, if you're willing to do and outwork anybody else, you become a great leader. And what our guys did was discover that the more leaders we had on the team, the better our team was going to be. And they surrendered themselves to the betterment of the other individuals on the team. Our success last year was directly related to our elite players making the players that were not elite feel like they were at the same level. And it came full circle as we had to play our entire position roster against Arkansas in game number 2. And so we sent guys out on the field that had 10 at-bats, 12 at-bats, 15 innings, but they felt like they were Caden Grenier and Trevor Larnick and Nick Madrigal and Adley Rutschman, because Adley Rutschman and Nick Madrigal and Trevor Larnick made them feel they were the same, and they treated them the same, and we acted the same, and we did the same. We clean our own locker room. We respect those that have to help us. We try to serve others, and I found out that you can be the greatest warrior and the most competitive human being and still be a humble servant, and it drives you to do even more. I'm impressed by their willingness to understand that, because an individual's will can become a team's will if enough individuals are willing. And that's what we do there. And the other thing we do, and I know that we're all parents here, and by the way, like I said, Dave said I'd be talking to the Boy Scouts, so I didn't realize how many of you are still in the Scouts, but I'm pretty impressed, you know, with that. And the thing about life is that I think the mistake we make, and I'm old, and Coach is older than me, and so thank God. And but when I grew up, I really didn't have anything. You know, the best thing my dad gave me was nothing, because he didn't have anything to give me. But he didn't ever try to lessen or take away from the struggle, and I could never figure that out until you get to the destination, and then you figure you're going to ruin the destination if you try to fix the struggles of life. You know, when I grew up, I used to go down to the park, throw the bat up in the air and cap it. I don't know if you guys did that. You did that, and whoever got the top got the hit first, and then you played workup, and you had to actually add and subtract. You know, if you got a fly ball, you played 500, you get 100 points, you work your way up, you kind of scrapped. And today, in a lot of cases, we try to fix all the problems for all these young kids, and then they don't know how to handle the problems when they get out into the real world. So my job was not to be easy on them, but to love them. And if they understand that, they'll let you do just about anything, knowing that what the outcome you're trying to get is truly their best interest. So I've been blessed to have guys that allowed me to do that. I've been blessed to be able to coach at an institution that gave me the freedom to coach the way that I wanted to. And you can't win without good players, I can tell you that. But just like life, you know, positive people find positive people to hang around. It's the same down there. Good players attract good players. So our players on campus, when someone comes to campus, attract those guys to come by what they believe in. And that has created our identity of who we are and how we want to play. I would tell you that in, Dave talks about 06, we were really talented in 06. We had a very talented club. And we lost in 05 with a very good club, the first 2 games. I read in the paper after we lost the first game in 06 that I was going to become the first coach to ever lose 6 straight games in Omaha. I'm thinking to myself, well, they lost the first 2 in 52. I wasn't even born, but I guess I'm responsible for that. But anyway, I just thought that it was so intriguing to me knowing how good we could be if we could just win one game. How important attitude is. How important attitude is. If we just win one game, how it would change our mindset. And that's exactly what happened. We beat Georgia 5-3. And then we came back and had the opportunity to play Miami, who Dave reminded me kicked the snot out of us 11-1. And I'll never forget our athletic director at the time was there, and he was in the van, and there was another gentleman in the van, and the van pulled back to the hotel after we got beat by Miami 11-1, and the guy said, "Hey, how'd you do?" And the guy said, "Oh, we lost." And he said, "No, we got our butt kicked." And he packed up and went home. And so I always appreciate the fact that we came home with a big trophy to show him. And I was going to ask him where he wanted me to leave that. But, you know, the other thing about life is I think people are afraid to talk about winning. You know, we're afraid to talk about winning, that it's, you know, let's just move everybody to the middle and then you'll be okay. I always tell our guys the number one enemy to greatness is good. You know, a lot of people are good. There's very few people that want to be great. And it's okay to talk about winning with kids. It's okay to say, finish first. You can still have unbelievable attitude, respect, loyalty, but you can still talk about winning. Because really when we get into life, whether we're taking a test, whether we're trying to become move up in the company, whatever we're doing, you have to win that day, you have to win that time, you have to win that event in order to do that. But for some reason we've moved away from that because that's not a good thing now, because that might offend somebody, when really what it really do is drive somebody to be better. If you want somebody that you care for deeply and love deeply to be better and become a better version of themselves, you become better and ask them to follow you. Lead them. You know, leaders will impact more people in 1 year of their life than others will in their entire life. That's how important leadership is. And I said this the other day, and I'll say it again when I speak, every time I speak. I read something one time that just was so profound. It said that an army of sheep led by a lion would defeat an army of lions led by a sheep. That's how important leadership is. And that never left me. It just stayed with me and made me understand that if I'm going to be a leader, I have to create future leaders. Leaders that will go out in the community, that will become great businessmen, teachers, fathers, husbands, players, whatever it may be, and they can impact other people's lives. So I don't know how I really got such a good opportunity to do that, or been blessed with such a good opportunity. There's something else that I'll read to you right here, because it's something that I try to read to our guys every year that kind of follows what I'm talking about. It says that an elderly carpenter was ready to retire. He told his employer of his plans to leave the house building business and live a more leisurely life with his family. How do those guys retire so early? It's ridiculous. He would miss the paycheck, but he needed to move on and his family to be able to help him get by. The contractor he worked for was very sorry to see his good worker go and asked him if he could build just one more house as a favor to him personally. The carpenter said yes, but it was easy to see that his heart was not in his work. He resorted to poor workmanship. He used low-grade materials in building the final job. It was an unfortunate way to finish a dedicated career. When the carpenter finished his work, the contractor came by to inspect the work. He handed the front door keys to the carpenter. "This is your house," he said, "my gift to you." The carpenter was shocked. What a shame. If he'd only known he was building it for himself, he would have done it much different. He would have built it with passion, pride, commitment, and discipline. So it is with us as athletes, coaches, and people. We build our lives a day at a time. We often put less than our best effort into building. Then, with a shock, we realize we have to live in the house we built. If we could do it over, we would do it much differently. But we cannot go back and build a new foundation. And we've already said, life is a do-it-yourself project. Your attitude and the choice you make today build your house you'll live in tomorrow. And I love telling our guys that. I love telling them that what you build, you will live in. And the great thing about life is we only get one of them. But how we live it and how we do the things within that life, we get to choose. We don't get to choose when it's over. We only get to choose how we live it. And when people try to convince us that we can't do something, it should be the greatest motivation and the greatest inspiration to prove them wrong. Because we're never too old to do something great, and we can never stop believing that we can become a better version of ourselves each and every day. And I try to teach that to our guys. And when you see guys winning the championship and beating people from Miami and beating people from Texas, and like I said, they think that's amazing, we do not believe that's amazing. We believe that that is the norm that we've set out and practiced and believed in from the very beginning. And a lot of it starts with pride, personal responsibility, and daily excellence. We force our guys to be responsible for their activity on and off the field. And it's truly something that I have admired the most about the players at Oregon State, how they've handled themselves and what they do away from the field and the things that people don't see, whether they're involved in the community, how they do academically. I think it's back-to-back years we had the highest GPA at the College World Series. Proud of that. I told David that I would make sure that I allowed some questions, because I would love to answer some questions and do those things for him. So David, you're the first guy. What question you got for me?
I know it's hard to quantify your different experiences taking the teams to the World Series and whatnot, but do you have a special memory of particular incidents or a game or something that just stands out? Maybe you could elaborate on that.
Well, a lot of things stand out. The one thing that sticks out in my mind is in '05 when we played USC here. And it was my first opportunity to play in a regional. And USC, who had won 12 national championships, comes in, and one of us gets to go to Omaha, and we win the first game. The second game, we're ahead, and my right fielder slips on the center in the outfield, and we drop a fly ball, and we lose game 2. And we're playing the great USC. Now we got to come back the very next day and beat USC to go to the World Series. And that's a hard deal to handle when you know that they have all the momentum and you have never been there. And I just told our guys that if we really believed in who we are and what we have been, and that we're the better team, that they needed to pack their stuff and get ready to go to Omaha. We came back the next day, and Andy Jenkins right here from Salem, Oregon, South Salem High School, hit for the cycle, and we won 10-8, went to our first College World Series, and that day I can remember vividly, that's for damn sure. Anybody else got a question?
I was curious, how do you motivate the young man that doesn't quite catch your vision, or maybe comes onto your team kind of feeling defeated? How do you drive that guy?
Well, depends on where we're at with him. First thing we try to do is encourage him. I think that encouragement is something that's missing. And it really depends on the individual. I think I was never a coach that could say that, hey, coaches, you should treat everybody the same, because nobody is the same. I was never gifted enough to say that I can just coach this mass the same way, and they would all respond to that. And so I just try to sit down with the individual, find out where he is, where he came from, what drives him, what doesn't drive him, why he's not motivated if he's not motivated, and we'll probably find out. If you look hard enough and long enough at a player, you will find something good in them. I don't care who it is. If you try and you look and you work and you do it long enough, you will find something good in each and every player. Now, there are different types of motivation. We had a guy one time that he thought getting out of bed and lifting weights was early at 6 a.m. and he mentioned it a few times, and so I said, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to lift tomorrow at 4 and find out how early 6 is, and it changed his mind in a hurry. I don't know if that motivated him or not, but it certainly changed his mind. But I think encouragement, finding out who they are, what they are. It's always amazing that you find somebody that came from a broken home, or somebody that came from a well-to-do home, or somebody that came from inner city, somebody came from the country, somebody's had a lot of success, somebody that hasn't had a lot of success. I think that each and every guy has something to offer, and sometimes there's a long road to finding that. I had a guy this year, I don't know if you guys follow this very much, but Kyle Novak was a guy from Everett, Washington, and Kyle's dad and grandfather were truck drivers, and Kyle didn't have any money, and we didn't have any money. We had something in common. You know, Kyle, we don't have a scholarship for you, but we want you to come. And you know, being out of state and coming to Oregon State's $25,000 for, you know, tuition. So, you know, he did, and I think the first year, you know, he would have just as soon knocked me out than play for me, you know. And we had a lot of tussles, and you know, the more I got to know him, the better I was able to handle him, and the better he was able to understand me. And you know, the one thing that they ask is, we've never had anybody in our family educated. And Kyle graduated this year, played in the College World Series, now he's coaching at Devore Community College. So you can motivate anybody if you look hard enough.
Coach, I was wondering if you could tell us which is the best athlete, the grandfather, Ad Rutschman, or the grandson?
Well, according to my dad, Ad Rutschman's the best athlete he's ever seen. So, you know, I never saw Ad play because they didn't have TV back then. But I'll tell you what, if he's as good as athlete as Adley, then he was one hell of an athlete. Because his grandson, and I know how proud he is. And Ad's son, Randy, and I were in the same class. Randy went to McMinnville and I went to Newburgh. And so I've known Randy since I was in 7th grade, competed against him. So not only is it so cool to see Adley be such a fine athlete, but such a great human being. He came to Oregon State with 52 college credits, which means he was in the middle of his, you know, part of his sophomore year when he came as a freshman. So, and he played football his freshman year and baseball. And you know, he wanted to be great at baseball. Didn't feel like he could do the academic piece, the football piece, and the baseball piece, because I think he's an NFL kicker as well. So he's got a chance to be a special player. But more important than that, he's just such a great kid. Just a wonderful human being. See, nobody's bold enough to ask questions, because you know what I mean. And you got to get out front.
Coach, love the way you coach. Some of the decisions you make are different than other coaches. Obviously, when you have a great coach, sometimes they're emulated. Do you see how you, because I don't see it, but see how you coach and the decisions you make influencing other coaches in college baseball?
You know what? I hope not, because then they'll beat me, right? I spoke at the convention, you know, this year, because that's the reward of winning the national championship. The next year, the coach gets to open the convention. You know, like I said, don't we go to Disneyland or something? Whatever, you know. 6,600 coaches. So, you know, the one thing I always say is that I could learn from each and every one of you, and I think that, you know, when you stop learning, you know, you stop growing. And so I learn from other coaches. I watch when we play games. I learn from my players. If you want to know how you coached the week before, look at the results over the weekend. You know, I probably coach different than a lot of coaches because I don't like practice plans. You know, I've never seen a game to follow a practice plan. You know, I have a practice plan because I have to have one, and we do certain things that we regimentally do and we routinely do. I like to break that routine in the middle of the routine when I'm coaching, because that's where the game happens. You know, you got a bunt defense on, let's say, and we put on a 3, and our pitcher is, you know, he's a little bit nervous out there, so he thinks we're in 2 and he throws the ball into center field. That doesn't really follow the script. So I like to change the script during practice in order to get the guy to emulate what really happens in a game. So we'll throw out 3 drills, let's say, in a 15-minute window, and in the midst of any one of those drills, we can run any one of them at any time and change the scenario so that they don't get into a rhythm of just doing it over and over. And there are things you have to do repetitiously. You know, baseball's a repetition sport, you know, so that is. But I don't know if I'm influencing them or not. I'm worried about the players.
Fast forward 12 months from right now. Where are you and what are you doing?
Well, I don't know what I'm doing 12. I hope I'm alive. But I like the question. Are you running me out of here? See, that's the thing about the Scouts. They're very disciplined. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Coach Casey. Please welcome Senator Jackie Winters.
Good morning. Good morning. You can do better than that. Good morning. Good morning. It is a real honor to be here with you this morning. And my years of public service to this community, and I was going back and thinking of when I arrived in Salem, it's almost been 50 years. 50 years of working in this community. And it's interesting because when I was asked to actually introduce the distinguished individuals who we're going to present the distinguished award to later, I thought about their work, and I thought about all the work that occurs in this community. And I also thought about something else, that the service in this community and how it's framed, and the question of how will this help the children to grow. What is best for the children? Whether it is funding for schools and teachers or public safety, how will this help our children? In the course of my time in this community, and like I said, almost 50 years to be exact, there have been many, many initiatives, programs, people, projects that have promoted the health, education, and well-being and safety of our greatest asset, our children. Today, as we listen to family scouting, family and children, there have been few that have matched the perseverance, the dedication, and love that today's Distinguished Citizens Award winners, Mark and Tiffany Bulgin. And I'm so proud to be here to introduce them. I won't, their bio is in your program and you can read it. But they have given so much in this community on behalf of our children. And I want to emphasize that. It is our children in this community. And as such, I know that you join me and others to present the award to them. So ladies and gentlemen, and you do have the program in front of you that tells you about them, their bio, but I think most importantly, most of us know them. You know, we've had coffee at the Icebox, you know, and if we don't have coffee, we can also break bread at the Icebox. Even from the Capitol, we find ourselves coming to the Icebox. Tiffany. Than the love of children. Coach Casey talked about, you know, motivating and what have you, and talked about coaching. You know, we're coaching children throughout their life. Yes, for sure. We are coaching and nurturing children. And Tiffany, I so appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jackie. As you can see, the better looking half is not with me today. Mark is actually, speaking of children, our oldest, I'll say our oldest living biological son. Does that beg a story, right? Our oldest living biological son is a freshman in college at Point Loma Nazarene in San Diego on the basketball team. And Mark got the opportunity to spend this week down there and just This was an unfortunate timing, but I'm sure you'll understand the dad's heart to be down there and visiting with Zach this week. I just am overwhelmed by this room. There's, as I've looked around and know many of you and your commitment to youth, your commitment to people in Salem, especially standing next to Jackie, it's a little bit humbling. I just want to say thank you. I'll just make my little talks short. I actually read what Mark wrote in the program, and of course, even not being here, he is great with words, and he did a good job explaining who we are, but I would like to just give a little illustration about our call to this community. It was interesting how Coach Casey talked about how 30 years later here he is and he's not even really sure how. That's how it happened with Mark and I. It's just our population of who we're dealing with is a little bit different than a college D1 athlete. I would guess that the principles, and I hope you saw me nodding a lot, the principles of instruction are very similar. But early in our marriage, when Mark was a basketball coach, a lot of people know that we lost our first son, Issac, to complications from a heart surgery. What not a lot of people know is that we had 2 parole probation teenage foster boys living with us during that time, and they were placed in backup care while we were with Issac for 2 months in Portland. And fast forward 20 years, all that we do in our community through our program called IQuest is both driven by the loss of Issac and given his room to kids in the community that did not get the investment that we were waiting to give him. But it is also driven equally by the 80 parole probation teenage foster boys that lived with us over 16 years. And what we learned about the fact that the guys that Mark was coaching in basketball, he was having great success, they were learning, they were growing, much like you heard about the young men that Coach Casey gets to be involved with. But if Mark walked away, most of them had been given investment and capacity building exercises through their life, and they would probably be okay. The young men that were showing up in our home had never lived anywhere long enough to be an athlete, or had never been given the opportunity to be on a Scouts troop. And we realized that they were deserving of that kind of investment because they were on the verge of adulthood without the ability to become a giving, successful adult in our community. So for 20 years, we've served hundreds of young men and women in our community, and we are about building capacity. In our house, we called it a crash course on manhood because it was all boys, but now we call it a crash course in adulthood. And as Dick let us know that we'd be giving this award today, I'm just amazed at the synergy between what the Scouts do and what we do, and what Coach Casey does. But it's just the population is different, right? And what I'm so encouraged about with the Scouts is that the youth we get are usually between 16 and 20, and most of them have never had an experience in their life that has enabled them to face a challenge, fail, and then learn how to get up with supportive mentoring adults. And that is really where we began to center our program, is helping these youth realize that they are the hero of their own story, regardless of their background, and that they can be a giver in our society. And I think that the earlier we can get those experiences in our youth, like with the Scouts, the better our society is going to be. You know, life is difficult. There's lots of challenges. Ask my 16-year-old who had to get up extra early this morning because mom had to be out of the house. There's small challenges and there's big challenges. And as I think about why Mark and I were able to lose our son and stay married for 25 years, celebrated this year, why we were able to feel this call to youth in our community and have 80 teenage boys between the ages of 23 and 40. I lean back on all those coaches and all those youth workers and my parents and the extended family that I had that taught me that I could fail, I could fall, I could have struggles, but I could push through that, and that life is worth living and our community is worth giving to. And I'm telling you, when Coach Casey said, if you look hard enough, you will find good in every player, I said out loud, in every person. Because as those kids began to live with us, what we saw, what the community was seeing was maybe poor behavior, acting out, different color hair, piercings, all the outward appearances that they're rejecting things. But what we got to see in our home, and what I have come to believe is a gift, is I believed I've been given the gift to see what God intended for them. And they're all good kids. They really are. And so at Isaac's Room, we believe through helping them face challenges, giving them a job, giving them family extended, helping them learn that through supportive mentoring experiences, they can face challenges and become a giving adult, and we've had hundreds do it, that we will all together make Salem a healthier place. So thanks for having us, and thank you, Jackie, for all your time.
Well, we are so honored to honor you. To not be over there in the marble halls and to be able to share this honor with you and this breakfast with the scouts, the family scouts. I'm so used to, the Boy Scouts. As I said last year, my brother was an Eagle Scout. But Tiffany, I am very honored to present this to you, and I know that those that are with me share that you and Mark have made a huge footprint in this community. And I don't think everybody knows how big that footprint has been. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany, for your dedication to the youth of Salem. Please welcome Ryan Collier.
Hello, my name is Ryan Collier. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning, and distinguished guests and speakers. I am a proud father of 3 sons, Austin, Jacob, and Sean. Austin, I am proud to say, has joined the Air Force, and my heart swells with pride with the man that he has become. My second son, first of all 3 were in the scouting program. That's partly why I'm here today and why I'm before you. My second son, currently a 3rd year at Oregon State studying engineering, go Beavs, also earned his Eagle Scout. And my 3rd son, Sean, is at Whitman College in Walla Walla, also an Eagle Scout. I'm so proud of the men that they've become. I'm proud of the people, the character that they have, the kindness that they show towards others, the skills that they've learned over the years. But when I was a father of young boys, they don't exactly give you a user's manual on how to be a father or a mother. You're sort of lost in the woods to some degree on how you're going to raise these people, teach them the skills that you know they're going to need into adulthood, teach them empathy, compassion, teach them citizenship, teach them skills and outdoor learning. Those aren't things that necessarily we're ingrained with when we're fathers and mothers. But the thing about the Boy Scouts of America is they give us that user's manual. They hand it to us. How many people are fathers and mothers in this room? And how many people have valued that user's manual, that playbook that was handed to you when your kids were young and allowed you to help them develop into the people that they have become? And I can proudly say that many of you have joined me on that quest. And 2 people in this room in particular, my dear, dear friends, Greg Astley and Sean Cooper, were handed that playbook about 18 years ago when my youngest son was just entering 1st grade, getting ready to start public school, and I brought him to the Fay Wright Elementary School open house where we were standing there trying to figure out school and what we're going to do. And there was a little table from Pack 122 there welcoming people to this program called Cub Scouts. And I was a Cub Scout, so I had really fond memories of that. So I walked up to that table, and there Greg and I were handed the playbook on how to raise young men. And when we said, great, when do we meet our leader? of course, what they said was, "You just did. You two are going to be the leaders." So Greg and I started an adventure with our young sons to raise these men. Weekly meetings, develop them, opening that playbook, teaching them skills, how to build, how to speak, how to play and have fun. And along the way, having a little fun, kissing frogs and almost burning down the house on Thanksgiving dinner. These things are things you learn along the way. And my other friend, Sean Cooper, going to Philmont, backpacking, being with these boys day in and day out to teach them to be men of character. But it's the playbook that the Boy Scouts gave us that helped them develop faith, character, leadership, citizenship. All these things are what built them into the men they are today. And I owe that, I truly, truly owe that to the Boy Scouts of America and what they've done for us to help build those people of character. And along the way, not only was I able to build these 3 men of character, I also made 2 of my best friends. And I'm going to finish with one story. My youngest son, also Eagle Scout, he earned his Eagle Scout last year before he turned 18. And at that time, my dad was struggling with cancer. And we were very wrapped up in his illness. And my youngest son, we still needed to do an Eagle ceremony for him. And of course, we've been to Eagle ceremonies. His other brother had an Eagle ceremony. And they're big celebratory events. But it's so hard to want to celebrate when you have a family struggle like that. And the illustration of what Boy Scouts have done in my son's life and to build him into a man of character, he turned to me and said, "Dad, I don't want a big Eagle ceremony. Mostly what I want to do is I want to honor my grandfather. He can't make it to my Eagle ceremony if we do it here in Salem. Let's take the ceremony to him and do it on his back deck." So my youngest son picked up the phone and called his scoutmaster, Sean Cooper, and said, "This is what I want to do for my Eagle ceremony." Sean Cooper got in the car, drove 3 hours each way, organized an Eagle ceremony on my father's back deck. And when I saw my son pin that Eagle pin on my dad's lapel, the pride I saw in my dad's face. I was so proud of Sean for the decisions he made. And I'm wearing that pin that my son pinned on my dad's lapel. And I'm so grateful for Boy Scouts of America for giving me that gift and giving our family that gift.
Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a pleasure to have you join us today. The Cascade Pacific Council will continue to be a strong leader and presence in the community because of the support of people like you. We again express our appreciation to the scouting youth who have joined us here this morning as we recognize the programs that will make a difference throughout the community. Our efforts here today will go a long way towards building the leaders of tomorrow.